Palworld is an early access, open world survival pocket monster RPG. It's quickly become one of the most successful indie games of all time. It's mired in controversy and scandals between the accusations of AI art and stolen assets. But is it a good game? As with most other survival games, you pop into the world with not much more than a loincloth and your two hands. The world is your canvas, and you need paint. You'll collect sticks and stones, break a couple of bones, and craft tools. Eventually you work your way up to a base, and the rest of the game is about getting better tools and improving your base, of which you can have 3, and beating the 5 different towers across the island, catching different pals along the way. Capturing pals works exactly as you would expect. You damage them until they're low on health, throw a ball, and if it ticks 3 times, you've caught it. There's not really anything special here, but it is nice that it shows off what your chances of succeeding are. You can keep up to 5 pals in your party at any time, the rest will have to stay in your pal box. After you've captured a pal, they can do a few things. Your pal can fight with you. If you really want, you can have a diverse team and exploit the elemental weaknesses of whatever it is you're fighting. You can bring the right type of element to every fight to make it a bit easier on yourself, but it didn't really feel necessary. Personally, I like purple, so I'd made a party entirely out of dark types and I did just fine. Your pal's AI, alongside the AI of every enemy, isn't the best, but it's serviceable. In the roadmap, fixing the AI is one of their main priorities, so if you're watching this in the future, it should be much better. But before I get into what else they can do, let's talk about the building aspect of the game. Building and managing a base is where the survival aspect of Palworld comes in. It's pretty simple. You build a pal box and everything in the surrounding area is marked as your territory. Any materials and chests within the zone will be automatically used whenever you try to build something, meaning you don't have to carry around everything in your bag. It's important to note that you can still build outside of this zone, so you aren't necessarily restricted to it. It'll just be a bit more annoying since you'll have to carry building materials. Unfortunately, you can't make anything too complex just yet, and building is sometimes a hassle, and at times you'll have to resort to some tricks to get things to work just right. Outside of structures, you can create crafting stations to refine ore, cook food, make weapons, create pal spheres, everything. And guess what? Your pals will do all the busy work for you if you assign them to your base. By default, you can have up to 15 pals working at your base. If a pal is capable of doing a certain task, it'll do it. Fire pals can heat furnaces and cook food, physically strong pals can mine stone and chop down trees, electric pals will keep the lights on, so on and so forth. You can view what a certain pal is capable of doing by viewing them, and some pals are more efficient than others. It's a pretty cool feature and gives another reason to go out and catch different pals. Like sure, a ruby might warm the furnace for a bit, but a pal from the volcanic region would definitely do the job way better. You don't have to pay them, but you still need to take care of your pals. You have to feed them, which is easy enough. You can make fields that your pals will plant, water, and grow their own food in. The main issue is that they have a sanity that starts at 100 and ticks down, and their mental state will deteriorate and they'll work less efficiently. You can stop this by giving them comfier beds and by building a hot spring that they can relax in when they take a break. Or you can not do this, have them go insane, butcher them for their meat, and simply replace them. The choice is yours. I think that the base management is pretty fulfilling, honestly. Sure, it can sometimes be annoying to have to manage the sanity, but you'll end up with so many pals that it's easy to simply replace it with a similar pal. Starting off with the basic pals and then catching the more advanced ones that are either specialized or outright better than the weaker pals is fun. And being able to regulate the busy work to your pals is nice, because once you've set everything in motion at your base, you can spend time out in the world catching more pals or exploring instead of crafting something. However, you can't directly order them to do one specific thing. If you have a fire pal and have 2 furnaces that are smelting different ores, the most you can do is pick it up and chuck it at the furnace and hope it detects it. But when the pal wanders off because it got hungry or needed a break, it's a gamble if it'll return to the same furnace. As for how you actually progress, leveling up involves catching a lot of pals. And I mean a lot. To level efficiently, you need to catch a certain pal 10 times in total. You'll receive an XP bonus at the 5th and 10th catches, and after that, your XP from catching that pal will be greatly reduced. The pal deck helps though, because just sighting a pal is enough for your pal deck to tell you where it spawns. It also tells you how many you've caught. And now that you've leveled, it's time to look at the tech tree. You gain technology points for leveling up and from some random manuals, but mainly leveling up. There's also ancient technology points which are obtained by defeating the tower bosses. The tech tree itself is okay, however, some decisions are a bit weird, like why do I unlock the Hellzephyr saddle at 33 when I don't unlock refined ingots until level 34? Why do I unlock weapons before armor? Why don't I unlock heat and cold resistant armor at the same time? While playing, I didn't really notice, but in retrospect, I think the tree could be reorganized a bit for a smoother experience. The world is, surprisingly, very large. I mean very, very large. The environment isn't too inspired, but it's enough. There's forests, deserts, tundra, and a volcano region. There's also some secrets, like hidden caves behind some of the waterfalls. There are a few landmarks, but they're few and far between. And remember those towers from before? These host human bosses that ride on top of pals, and you get to take them on in an arena. They're alright. They have a ton of HP and are probably the biggest challenge you'll get out of this game. Also, there's two main collectibles you can get. The first are Lift Monk effigies, which have a distinct green glow. When you collect enough of these, you can take it to a Statue of Power and level up your chance to capture a pal. Fortunately, there's a surplus, so you don't actually have to find every single one on the map. The other collectibles are diaries, which have entries from the tower bosses and someone called the Castaway, which brings us to the story. The story is unfortunately sidelined because it's told through these diaries along with the PAL deck entries, which you kinda have to go out of your way to actually view. From what I understand from the diaries, the main takeaway is that the game takes place far in the future, and the island is isolated from the rest of the world by a mysterious fog. Also, pals are created from people. Somehow. The story is very much up to interpretation. Hopefully game theory can make sense of it. Combat is sort of weird. Personally, it felt like the most unfinished part of the game because while it has depth, it's not fleshed out. The PAL's attacks are usually just recolored across different elements. For example, every element has a laser attack, but the color matches their element. The built-in combat roll also feels a little clunky, but it might just be me. I also have no clue if there's iframes or not. Dodging attacks is usually intuitive, but some do have delayed timing or, as far as I know, are outright undodgeable. Shooting and rolling around in its current state definitely could use some work, but it's fun enough for now. When you create a world, you have several settings to tweak, and the best part, you can continue to tweak these settings even after you've created it. This is an absolute godsend because let's say you feel the enemies are hitting too hard. Turn the damage down. Game progressing too slowly? Bump up the XP. Feels too grindy? Increase the drop rate. Honestly, I think they included this because they didn't really know how to balance the game themselves, but it's a welcome addition anyway. Palworld is in early access, and it's certainly rough around the edges, but it does something special. I think this game is proof that if a game is built on a fundamentally fun idea, it'll work, no matter how rough the execution is. It's buggy, unpolished, and doesn't have ray tracing, but who cares when the game is fun? Many of the ideas in this game feel like someone went, "Wouldn't that be cool?" and they were met with a resounding yes. You may have noticed that I haven't mentioned the designs of the pals yet, that I haven't mentioned any of the controversies. The reason is simple. I don't care. Or rather, it doesn't matter. The designs aren't integral to the gameplay. I mean, they add to the shock value of being able to shoot a cutesy lamb or putting a green chipmunk to work in an assembly line, but that's about it. Would it be nice if the designs were all 10 out of 10, completely original masterpieces? Sure. But the designs are more than enough for me. This $30 game is a breath of fresh air and is a reminder of why people play games. Fun. I think many games have lost sight of that because they're too busy focusing on how much money they can make between a new $70 standard price with microtransactions and DLC or overpriced skins. Pocket Pair, the developers behind Palworld, have a roadmap for the game. I can only hope that they stay the course and keep their promises, because if they do, Palworld has the potential to stick around for a very long time. Thank you for watching.